Yeah, sugar. Right, now we're live. Nicola, I need to remember to press twice on the go live button. Okay, we're live. Welcome. Good afternoon to the Business BoardCast. I'm here with David Samuels this afternoon. Delighted to see everybody. So just wait for you to settle in your seats, grab your cup of tea. And the topic of discussion this afternoon is leadership skills. So, hi, David. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic.
Excellent.
I've recently relocated down to the south coast, and I'm enjoying being a full-time tourist.
Are you getting some good weather down there? Is it one of these little microclimate places?
It's amazing down here. It's a microclimate. It's either super sunny or it's raining like a train. So either way, but we love it.
Yeah, lots and lots of rain. So I've invited David here. So it's such a small world. Lots of people I know David. I got introduced to David through we've got the same personal bank manager, and we've worked together a lot over during the pandemic because I was when he was still in the Thames Valley area. I participated in one of his online Vistage programs over during the pandemic, which was super useful, and met some really nice people. So yeah, David, just to introduce yourself, what are your credentials?
My credentials. Well, I got kicked out of school by my dad. That's how my career started. Now, we won't go into that because that will use up the whole half an hour. Eventually, I ended up working training to be an optician, fitting glasses and contact lenses. And I grew a business with a fantastic mentor of mine, Duncan Ashby, who's still going strong. And 35 years in that industry. I was a Vistage member myself, and I always participated in different learning. Learning as much as I could, going to night school to catch up on the education I should have done when I skipped uni. And now more recently, last couple of years, I've become a coach helping other CEOs to grow their businesses, both in my the pond I love, which is the optics world, and also in the CEO world. So I now I'm just building a new Vistage group down here on the south coast for CEOs. And trying to get CEOs to work together, help each other to grow their businesses. So that's now my full-time role.
Fantastic. Yeah. So particularly, I always like to invite guests that have been there and done that and don't just know the theory. And David definitely has. He's led various businesses successfully. Just a reminder to everybody that's watching live, because obviously some will be watching on YouTube and you'll be liking and subscribing. However, if you're watching live, do please do say hello, pop in to the comments, ask any questions as we go along. We'll be going through quite a lot of different things, but we do really want to see your input. So please do say hello in the comments so that I know it is working, as always. But also just any questions as we go along, and I will feed them into David. So we're talking leadership skills. So David, what is leadership?
Oh, what a good question. So when I'm talking to leaders, I've kind of got there's hundreds of different skills for leadership. I think we've nailed it down to about 7. Whenever we run our program, we always say there's an 8th because everyone's got an 8th that we haven't listed. To me, it's around inspiring people to follow a vision that they believe in passionately about, and it's being able to get the right people around you so that you can grow. My thing that I learned from Duncan very early on was, he said, surround yourself with people that are better than you. My team were always happy to point out that I was very good at doing that, of course. And so that's what I've done. Over my career, I found people that can do all the various jobs in the business better than I could ever do, and really let them off the leash and allow them to do their thing. And it seems to have worked. Made some horrendous errors over the years, but that's all part of life's learning.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. So, yeah, especially all those that are busy building up their teams, doing big recruitment drives. Get people that are better than you. It's good aspiration. I certainly can tell that some of my accountants and auditors, they're They're super clever. So yeah, we definitely want to have really good people surrounding you. One thing that's always said about or asked about leadership, and I'd love to hear your viewpoint, David. Are leaders born or are they made?
Oh, good question. I think it's probably a combination. I think the leaders I've met over the years, running small, medium-sized businesses, come in all shapes, sizes, different intellects, different personalities. If you look even wider at the big people that we always look up to, the Steve Jobs and all the rest of it, a lot of those folks have completely different characteristics to each other. So for me, there is a certain there's a certain type of person who's able to look at the leadership, what leadership is, and then take it on. What I found interesting in my days at Eyesight was I always imagined that everybody wanted to be the MD. That was my
No one
thing.
wants to be.
Nobody wants to be the MD. A bit like doing these presentations. If I think surveys have shown that death is only feared more. Anything worse than presenting is death. So what I learned was that lots of people don't want to be MD and would never ever want to have that level of responsibility. So I think you have to have a reasonably thick skin, but I think you can be introvert, extrovert, whatever you are, and if you've got that inspired vision and that idea, and you can galvanize a team, then I think leadership's for anyone.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've been in with various different courses with you, David, and I know that before we've talked about the different types of skills for leadership. Can you sort of refresh my memory? What are the key skills of leadership?
Well, very quickly, the 7 that I refer to normally is this idea of inspiring a shared vision, the idea of leading and kind of letting other people manage the business, but leading it. Really important that you as a leader are not on the hamster wheel all the time, but you're out there looking for new opportunities and understanding where your industry is going on a kind of macro scale. It's about getting the right people on the bus, Jim Collins would say, and get them facing the right direction. The 2 other things actually that kind of get left behind sometimes is the numbers. I think it's really important to know your numbers, not just your financials, but your what I would call forward-facing KPIs. There's a lot of boardrooms who spend a lot of time looking back at what they did instead of looking forward at what they want to do. So it's really important in a business to create key performance indicators that drive future revenue and growth, and not necessarily just look back at historically what you did. And then the one that really important is look after yourself. I don't think you can be a leader unless you look after yourself intellectually, keep up to date with what's going on, keep yourself in good shape physically if you can, play lots of tennis, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And it's the old adage of put your own oxygen mask on first before you can help other people. If you're not in good shape, it ain't going to work.
Yeah, that was one of the nice things in Vistage. It was always when we have our little snapshot updates, it was always we were rating personally how we're feeling besides how we were feeling business wise, which was always good. So it's all goes hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. Excellent. So there's loads of different skills for leadership. What would you say are the top 3?
It would depend on where the business is, where it's it's the stage of its cycle. Businesses obviously go through cycles. The one that is always important to me is the inspiring a shared vision one, because wherever you are in your business, you should be looking forward. And if there isn't a vision that people can follow, what happens is the talented individuals in that business potentially start looking elsewhere where they can find something exciting. People want to work in an organization that's going places and that gives them a sense of purpose, gives them the ability to master new skills, the ability to make decisions, and So to me, it's really important. That top one is probably a priority. And if you look at some of the big companies, the Richard Bransons and all the rest of it, quite often that's all those guys do. They set
Yeah.
the vision and then they let their team off,
Mm.
off the leash to go and achieve it. So that'd be my
Yeah.
top one. The second one is linked to that, which is leading and letting other people manage.
Mm-hmm.
Often a CEO's primary job is just get out of the way of the team and let them get on with it. I think nose in, fingers out is probably one of the phrases that I heard, which I think is a good one to remember if you're a CEO. Is you need to know what's going on in your business, but don't go dabbling around and poking your nose in if it's going to detract from the progression of the business.
Yeah, no, I like that. Nose in, fingers out. I'm going to remember that one. I hadn't
That's
heard
the one.
that one before. Excellent. Okay, so we've got inspiring shared vision, leading, but then letting others manage. What's the third one?
I guess the third one is to make sure you're again, it's around the people, having and keeping the right people, which is linked to the first two really. But
Mm-hmm.
this idea of watching emerging trends. If you think about some of the more recent successful companies like Uber, Warby Parker, WhatsApp, for example, there's quite a lot of companies that have fallen by the wayside because they didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
The famous blockbuster Netflix story, of course, which we all know.
Kodak.
Kodak's another one. And so it's really important that you spend time talking to your competitors, talking to people within your industry, talking to people outside of your industry. A lot of the big changes that we've seen in business have been really left field. And who would have thought a company selling computers like Apple would end up selling 60% of the music that's sold on the planet, that kind of thing. So it's a question of keeping your ears pricked up and your eyes wide open. And I know some CEOs, especially the introverts, feel a bit self-conscious when they're going off to a conference on general business. Some CEOs I've spoken to feel a bit self-conscious when they're out of the business. They feel a little bit, do my team need to know what I'm doing if I'm going, to an event or a talk or whatever? But they want the business to be successful as well. So it's really, really important. Get out there, spend a good chunk of your time just out looking at what's going on in the business world, because you'll also find while you're doing that, of course, you'll find opportunities that you didn't even know existed. So yeah, I think that's a big one, is keeping your head above the parapet.
Fantastic. Good. So if you're currently a manager, an aspiring leader, or even if you are a leader, how can you assess how good you are? I mean, I think we remember we've had some good sessions doing assessments of that before, David. What remind me of how that all worked?
Yeah, so I mean, the way I do that with people I work with is we go through the 8 key skills, sort of dive into each one in a bit more depth, and then we ask each leader to rate where they are now. So it's like a kind of a self-assessment of where you are now on a scale of, say, 1 to 10, and also where you'd like to be in maybe 1 year, 2 years time, whatever, and then form like I guess a spidergram of where you are. And that enables you to see where the gaps are in your knowledge. Now, if you're scoring, knowing your numbers, if you're not into the finances, then that's fine. If you're scoring yourself a 3 out of 10 on finance, and you really don't really want to raise that, what you need to make sure is that someone else in your organisation is at 8 or 9.
Yeah, you bring in someone to match it.
Bring in
Yeah.
someone to match it. In the peer groups that I work in, because with all my coaching, I work with peer groups in all the different areas. And it's really interesting that everyone's leadership spidergram is different. And by putting 5 or 6 people in a room together, what you'll find is collectively, there's usually someone in the room scoring 8 or 9 on every single facet. But it's very hard to be all of those things all of the time. But doing a bit of self awareness, checking on those things, will give you some pointers to what your strengths are and what you need to improve. And then you can decide. You can say, okay, am I going to take my strengths and make them, 10 out of 10, or am I going to work on a couple of weaknesses and just bring them up to a level? I mean, I'm never been into the financial numbers. Used to hate looking at balance sheets and all that kind of horrible things. But again, it was someone said to me, you need to know enough, David, so that you know if your CFO is performing well or not.
Yes.
And not siphoning off all your funds into their Spanish villa kind of thing. So that was one of the things I learned was, if I'm not good at something, understand and recognize it and bring someone in who's going to do that for you.
Okay, super. So we're going to go through in a minute for the people that are watching live, just to have a sort of reflection at where people are on certain areas. But just before we get there, I know that as I said, we've got quite a few mutual connections we didn't realise we all both knew. One of them is the lovely Nigel Alks, and he was just wondering, where exactly are you based now, David? Sound like you're on the south coast.
Hi, Nigel. Yes, we down in Lymington, just over the sea from the Isle of Wight. A gorgeous area. My other half, Linda, lived here when we met 16 years ago, and the deal was that we'd always come back here once the kids had flown the nest. So yes, moved down here 4 months in, and loving it, Nigel.
Brilliant. Okay, so shall we select a couple of the different skills, and then if you're watching live, obviously, if you're watching this later on, you can still do this again, but then just have you can connect with David on LinkedIn. There will be a connection to him if you're watching this on LinkedIn, there'll be a connection to him, or contact me if you need extra details to connect to him. But yeah, so let's have a look. Shall we look at the top three that you mentioned? So so this will only be part of your spidergram, but so yeah, if you're thinking now, inspiring a shared vision. So those leaders out there. So it's whether it doesn't matter if you're a leader of the whole business or if you're a leader of a section of the business. So what level do you think you are? How good you are out of 10, with 10 being a Richard Branson, 0 being a Ratner, of being of how good you are at sharing your vision. I'll be free. Let's do this as a open online coaching here. Share. I think I'm pretty much. I'd say I'm an 8. I'd say, because I always do generally have a pretty strong vision of where I want to go, and might frighten the team sometimes at how fast I want to get there. But yeah, I'd say that's one area that I'm usually pretty good at explaining to where I want to go. Perhaps I've been down more recently. Perhaps earlier in the pandemic went down a bit because it was a bit shaky of want to relook. But yes, anyone out there want to comment or how they feel about where they feel on being able to inspire and share their vision? So do feel free to share and comment. It's out of 10. So Mike, if you're watching, I'm pretty sure you'll be a 10. So he's fabulous at getting vision. I know he was going to be watching. But yeah, so say if we on that one, David, so say if somebody actually, might be a bit shy and want to share the fact that they were actually feeling perhaps they were a 3 or a 4 out of 10 for sharing their shared vision and inspiring. What could they do there as a leader? How could they help? What sort of person do they need to add to their team, or what can they do to help go up the scale?
Well, for me, that one is the leader's job. It's hard to bring someone else in to do that inspirational job. I think the first thing I would say is really look at what your vision is. Because this one, if you're passionate about what you want to do, this should come relatively naturally to you. So I would say one of the things you need to look at is look at your vision. Is it inspiring? Is it something that your team are going to jump out of bed on a Monday morning for and dash into work, or are they going to just pull a duvet over and, phone in with a headache? So I think it's important to understand what your vision is and to get that nailed down. Then the inspiration is all around the communication. It's how you then let the team know what it's all about and help them to get behind that vision.
And to get excited about
and
it.
get excited about it. And if you're in the fortunate position where you haven't really got one, but you've still got a successful, business going, get the team together to develop that vision. What you'll find is in your team, they will already have what they're passionate about, and so if you can pick that up and run with that by getting them to come together and build a vision for the business, so much the better. So it's there's very few leaders that can just stick a flag in the sand and say follow me, and people will just off they go.
Blindly follow.
That's right.
Not unless you're running a cult.
No, exactly. So yes.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
getting that across to the team. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go in the managing one next. Nigel just had a cheeky question. So what's the cup on the bookshelf? Did you buy it or did you win
The
it?
cup on the bookshelf. That is the rest of the world golf trophy. I go off with a
Oh,
bunch of mates once a year, and we have our mini Ryder Cup. And I was lucky enough to be the champion this year of my team. So that's
oh, fabulous! Congratulations.
that's the only golfing cup, and it's a bit of a. The reason it's in here is because it's not allowed in the lounge, Nigel.
Oh. Well, congratulations! You
Oh,
quit
thank you.
while you're ahead. That's the peak of your golf
Yes,
career. Um,
absolutely.
so the next one is one that I see that's a lot of they've got some great aspiring leaders. I see with some super SMEs that we work with, but it is hard to, especially if it's been the business has been your baby, to let go. So if you're being the leader, but you need to let others manage. So I mean, I must admit, I've had problems with that. I'm still a work in progress there. I'm probably a 5 or a 6. I'm testing my ability of that next week by trying really hard not to have a week off next week and not be on the phone or email, and see how everything goes. But so where people are, like myself or whoever else, thinking, oh god, I'm a bit nervous about stepping away and letting others manage. What should they do?
Well, this was always my weak link, I have to say. There was a phrase in eyesight called "you're being Samuelized," which the management team would use when they had an idea and I had an idea, and I would go round the houses and round the houses until they went with what I wanted. So if someone said you're Samuelizing me, David, I would have to say, yeah. They were usually right, to be fair. It's about trust, really. It's about trusting others to make decisions. One thing I learnt, another one you may not have heard is, I once spoke to someone who said, if you think you can make all the decisions in your business, think again, because if you think about the decisions we make as leaders, probably 7 out of 10 of them, everybody in the organization would probably make the same decision. They're kind of no-brainers, and it's kind of obvious with a lot of decisions that we make, and that leaves 3 out of 10 where it needs a bit more. Now 2 out of 10, other people might make a different decision in terms of the way you go about achieving a particular goal, but they would get to the same goal. And quite a lot of the debates that go on in leadership teams is around the how we get to that point rather than where do we want to go. Most people tend to agree where we want to get to. They'll be disagreeing on how you get there, which is good, healthy conflict. So that's kind of 9 decisions out of 10 sorted. And he said to me, 1 out of 10, who's to say that you're always right, David? Why would you get 10 out of 10 decisions right and no one else would? So to me, it's about getting the trust going in the business, and then allowing people to make their own decisions about how they how they achieve their goals, and more about coaching them on the way rather than telling them what to do.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I definitely don't always make the right decision, so it's yeah, absolutely
Yeah,
to give the others chance to put
yeah,
their viewpoint in.
yeah. And
Absolutely.
there's almost a mini spidergram you can do within that section. To be fair, it's about how honest are you, how consistent are you as a as a leader. Are you genuinely concerned about your team, or do you just say stuff you don't really mean? Are you approachable, flexible? How risk averse are you, or how willing are you to allow someone to take a risk in a business? Quite often with your money, if you're the founder of a business, it'll be your money they're playing with.
Yeah.
And in fact, as a little aside, often your team are far more. I don't know if you find, Nicky, but I often found my team were far more concerned about the pennies than I ever was. Um,
Yeah.
I if you get told off
Well,
for buying the milk
certainly.
from the wrong shop.
Oh, I know. Certainly with the cat, I'm working with a load of accountants. I'm obviously a bit different on accountant. I always think more about, well, yeah, it's a gap in profit. Well, go and get some more sales. Perhaps that's probably why I'm the MD rather than, whereas I've got the others going, well, actually, yeah, let's cut these little budgets. And I'm like, can't get
Yep.
excited about that.
So
So,
yes, I
yeah.
once got told off by a receptionist for going over the road to the newsagents to buy a pint of milk instead of walking 100 yards up to Sainsbury's where it was 5p cheaper.
Yeah, but you've got to think about how much time that takes you and the opportunity cost of the extra billable that you could have done.
Yeah,
So,
and why I was getting the milk in the first place.
yeah,
Um,
precisely.
but I was getting out of the way of the team so they could carry on running the business. So
Mm,
yeah, that's it.
indeed.
So all of those things, being a good communicator and all that kind of stuff, really important as a leader in
Yeah.
order that you can get out of the way of people, as I said.
So we've only got a few minutes left. So question to anybody watching live is what do you think is your biggest leadership challenge? What do you see? Is there that you're seeing at the moment, perhaps because of the ending of the pandemic, or what is the biggest challenge to you being a successful leader now? I'd just be interested to know. And even if you're just an aspiring leader as well at the moment, don't be don't be scared. Just share. It's everyone's got something to work on. Um, in the meantime, while we're waiting for anybody to be brave to share what leadership challenge they want to share with us, or if you've got any general questions for David, do please feel free to ask. Um, I just wanted to just touch upon the emerging trends. I think that's um, certainly in the last few years, I've had a lot more confidence to get involved in, you want to start being a thought leader really in your field is a really good area to, if you're getting to understand the emerging trends and hopefully predicting, successfully, having an opinion. Just finding someone with a strong opinion on something as well these days is, well, if you're on Twitter it's fine, but in general sometimes in business it can be difficult to find people with an actual opinion on things. So any tips for understanding emerging trends, or how to become a thought leader?
Two things really. It makes sure, obviously, most people are pretty good at networking within their own sector. Most people I talk to have gone, they will go to their own national conference or whatever it is to do with and they'll read the business books pertinent to their industry. I think getting involved in something outside of your sector is extremely valuable because you bring in ideas into the business that you wouldn't otherwise have known. I mean, I recall visiting when I was running a group of opticians, I visited a torque wrench factory in Banbury, and I picked up from their production line, I probably picked up one of the most valuable ideas ever that I took back into my business, which was around the efficiency of production lines and making sure that everybody in a system was really looking after the next person in the line. And I made some quite significant changes to my business due to that. Now, typically, I would never have known that just by visiting. I could have visited 100 other optical businesses, and none of them would have been doing that. And it turns out this guy with the torque wrench business got the idea from visiting a car manufacturing plant. So there's stuff that is going on out there that you don't even know is in existence that you could be using in your business to to impact positive change. So
Absolutely.
get involved with something outside your sector as well as
Mm.
within, I think would be my biggest piece of advice there, Nikki.
Yeah. So just for rounding up, because we're just about on our 30 minutes. Nigel's got a really good question, which sort of is a good thing to end on. When you've bought companies, David, which you've done, which may have had different ethos, how did you find engaging a team you haven't recruited who might show resistance, and how did you get over it? So that's really good. So how do you be the leader when you're going into a new culture that you weren't the one that brought that culture up? How would you approach that?
That's interesting. I'd probably use an analogy for that one of a good surgeon. An excellent Mr. Pillai is an eye surgeon that I know, and he had 100% success with his eye surgery. And the reason he was so successful is because of the way he selected the patients who were right for the treatment that he was offering. And he would only treat people he knew was going to work. And I would say I was very fortunate in that the businesses that I acquired, I made sure the cultural fit was going to be perfect, or I didn't buy it. And I've got a friend at the moment who has bought another practice, and he's trying to merge two into one, and they are totally different cultures, and he's having all sorts of problems with
Yeah.
it, and he's starting to wish he didn't start, and I'm not really sure you can do it. They talk about business mergers. Some people say there's no such thing as a merger. There's one side always takes over the other in any merger. So to me, it's making sure the cultural fit is right before you go in, because otherwise you do have a big fight on your hands. And I'm sure our listeners have got examples of that
Yeah.
they could relay.
No, absolutely. So that's a really good thing to end on. So, if you are about to acquire another business, whatever, so it's just slight for which we've covered off in some of our other Fridays. When you're doing your due diligence, do your cultural due diligence as well. It's not just about the financials, it's about the culture too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, David. Learned loads and loads there. So, we're all going to be aiming next week I'm going to be walking around a few different National Trust places. But for those that aren't off next week, they're going to be trying to make sure that they're inspiring and leading with their shared vision. They're going to be leading and letting others manage, and they're going to be watching out for those emerging trends. So fantastic. Thank you very much, David. So just remind us how people can contact you.
Well, the easiest way is find me on LinkedIn. I've got myself up there with my Vistage profile, so you can have a little read about what I do there. My email address, phone number's all on there, so always happy to talk to people. Just pick up the phone, drop me an email, drop me a message, whatever it is, and I'm happy to chat.
Excellent. Thank you so much, David. Have a lovely weekend. Any golf this weekend?
Absolutely. People visiting again. One thing about moving down here is everyone wants to come and see you.
Oh,
So
got lots of visitors.
more
Fab.
people visiting tomorrow. The only trouble is by 11 o'clock, they say, is it beer o'clock yet, David? And I'm like, I live here. I'm not on my holidays. But anyway, so yeah, looking forward to a nice weekend.
Okay, well, we better go and tidy up the house ready this afternoon then. Okay. Thank you very much, David, and see you again soon. And next week, for anyone, for those, although I am on holiday, I, of course, am not letting the business broadcast stop for the week. I am being joined by, in fact, the lovely Nigel Elks, and we are going to be talking about gearing, not your bikes, but of your business, the best way to gear your business better. So if you don't know what gearing is, or you want to understand how to gear your business better, come and join us. And thank you very much to everybody. Thank you for watching. Cheerio.
Thanks a lot, folks.